In the heart of Nexus Prime, a galactic council of armed diplomats trembles as a weaponless human defies tradition and disarms a deadly foe with a single strike. What secret power do humans wield that lets them outmatch the galaxy's fiercest warriors? Without a blade, unravel the mystery of humanity's true strength in this thrilling tale of intellect over might. Continue reading, then like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more captivating videos to inspire even more amazing content. The vast expanse of Nexus Prime loomed against the backdrop of a volatile neutron star, its enormous energy fields casting an ethereal glow across the chamber. The station, 12,000 kilometers in diameter, buzzed with the power of 400 species, each representing the pinnacle of their civilization. The Concordium assembly, nestled at the heart of Nexus Prime, stood as the most prestigious diplomatic body in the galaxy. But beneath its gleaming halls, beneath the grand marble columns and the glint of futuristic technology, there was a single, unbroken rule that held sway. Every delegate must carry a weapon. Korr Valtrek, ambassador of the Zorathian Dominion, was steeped in his people's warrior traditions. His graviton-plated armor crackled with contained energy, the edges humming with power. It was a suit capable of absorbing and redirecting energy blasts, crafted from rare materials found only in the heart of dying stars. At his side, his plasma glyph shimmered, its blade flickering with violet energy. The weapon wasn't just a tool. It was a symbol of Zorathian might, a testament to a race forged in the heat of constant warfare. Poise, Korr, his Tavra, his bioluminescent scared aide, her voice sharp. You're about to represent an empire. Korr's hearts beat in synchronized rhythm, each pulse carrying the weight of his people's expectations. He adjusted the sleek, gravity-defying armor, and with one final glance at his weaponry, he stepped forward to the awaiting doors of the Concordium assembly. The chamber, filled with towering beings from across the galaxy, was a spectacle of dazzling armaments. From the shimmering shields of the Sholnak to the plasma cannons of the Harag, Korr's confidence was palpable. Peace, in the Galactic Council, was secured through the weight of these weapons. But little did he know, this council session would soon challenge everything he thought he knew about strength. In the back of his mind, one thought lingered. Why is it that humans are exempt from carrying weapons in these chambers? The grand adamantine doors of the assembly chamber groaned as they parted, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Korr Valtrek's senses flared as he braced for the next speaker, a fellow ambassador, perhaps, or another representative ready to impose their influence on the galactic stage. But what he saw caught him off guard. Ambassador Elena Voss of Terra strode in, late, but with a confidence that could cut through the tension in the room like a blade. She wore no ceremonial armor, no glittering weaponry, just a simple crimson jumpsuit, tailored perfectly to her lithe frame. The silence was deafening. Korr's eyes narrowed as he processed the anomaly, a human, weaponless, entering the chamber. The other delegates stiffened, their eyes flicking toward the woman who dared to defy centuries of tradition. The room was filled with gasps, sharp inhales of disbelief. Korr's first thought was that this was an insult, an affront to the Concordium's long-standing rule that weaponry was not just necessary, but sacred. But as Elena moved with purposeful grace toward her seat, she seemed entirely unbothered by the scrutiny. How can this be? Korr whispered to Tavra, his voice tinged with disbelief. Humans are exempt. Tavra nodded, her bioluminescent skin flickering nervously. It's a mystery, Ambassador. No one understands why. The energy in the room was palpable as Elena sat, making eye contact with the assembly. Her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the charged atmosphere. She crossed her legs nonchalantly, completely unfazed. Korr felt a flicker of doubt in his own chest. In every corner of the galaxy, strength was a reflection of weaponry. But this human, this lone human, was different. Korr's thoughts swirled. How could humanity be allowed to break such a sacred rule? He needed to know more. He needed to understand. The human presence was a mystery waiting to unravel. 2 months had passed since Elena Voss' silent defiance of tradition. and the mystery of humanity's weaponless status had only deepened in Korr's mind. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. Nexus Prime's calm was shattered as alarms blared, the harsh, mechanical shrieks echoing across the grand chamber. The monitors blinked red, and the assembly members' faces contorted in confusion and fear. Breach in Sector 7. Rogue faction detected. The voice of the station's AI called over the comms. Korr's hands tightened on the edge of his chair, his triple hearts pounding. The Sons of Entropy, a faction known for its anarchy and advanced antimatter weapons, had somehow infiltrated Nexus Prime. Their antimatter rifles were infamous for their instantaneous disintegration capabilities. A single shot could obliterate anything in its path, from a guard's body to the very atoms of a building. In a flash, the doors exploded inward, and a masked figure stepped through, his weapon glowing with a deadly blue light. A guard stationed at the entrance crumpled to the ground, his body vaporized instantly. The attacker's voice, deep and menacing, filled the room. Control the defense grid or face annihilation. Panic swept through the assembly. Korr's eyes scanned the room, knowing full well that his plasma glaive and neutron pistol would be no match for the attacker's technology. But before he could even move, Elena Voss was already standing, her crimson jumpsuit a stark contrast to the chaos. Her hands were empty, no weapon, no shield. With a speed that defied belief, she closed the distance to the leader of the Sons of Entropy. In one fluid motion, she dug beneath his weapon and struck, her fingers digging into the seams of his armor. A sharp twist, a nerve strike, and the man collapsed, his weapon deactivated. Elena didn't stop there. Dr. Jace Harrow, her attaché, had already grabbed a jagged shard of debris from the shattered doorway, hurling it directly at an attacker's rifle core. The shard struck with deadly precision, sending the weapon into a violent detonation, the explosion echoing through the chamber. In less than 30 seconds, the humans had neutralized the entire assault. Korr was left breathless. The attackers lay in pieces, incapacitated by nothing more than human ingenuity. The technology of the attackers, advanced, lethal, and destructive, had been bested by an unarmed human. For the first time, Korr realized the truth. It wasn't about weapons. It was about adaptability. And humans, it seemed, had mastered it. The room was still, save for the occasional crackling of the holographic comms and the faint hum of the damaged systems. Trying to restore order, the attackers lay sprawled across the chamber, incapacitated but alive. The air tasted of burnt ozone and melted metal, the result of the quick thinking and sheer force of will shown by the humans. Ambassador Elena Voss and her attaché, Dr. Jace Harrow. Korr stood frozen, his eyes locked on Elena, who was already moving with fluid grace to assess the damage. Her composure was unnerving. Her presence, so unassuming just moments ago, now radiated an unmatched quiet confidence. Elena's quick, calculated actions had saved countless lives and rendered the once feared Sons of Entropy powerless, and all without a weapon in sight. Her strike had been nothing short of extraordinary. The leader of the Sons of Entropy, a towering figure clad in a near-indestructible exosuit, had been nearly impervious to regular attacks. But Elena had found his weakness. With a precise nerve strike, she had targeted the tiny gap in the exosuit's plating, a spot so minuscule it would have been missed by anyone less skilled. With a swift motion, she had incapacitated him. Korr's mind raced. She didn't just disable him. She did it with one move. One precise move. Ambassador Voss, Korr called, his voice barely a whisper. Elena turned her head slowly, acknowledging him without a hint of arrogance. How did you? She smiled, a thin, knowing grin. It's all about knowing where to strike. You learn to think like your enemy, and sometimes that means you don't need a weapon to defeat them. Just in sight. Korr's pulse quickened. Humans didn't rely on brute force or superior firepower. They used intelligence, adaptability, and precision. Elena had disarmed a warrior whose species had built entire empires on the backbone of combat technology. Her victory was a testament to human ingenuity, an ingenuity that had now reshaped Korr's understanding of power. As the council chamber slowly returned to its tense silence, Korr could no longer deny it. The humans weren't exempt from carrying weapons because they lacked power. They were exempt because they were something far more dangerous. The chaos of the rogue attack had barely settled before the sheer magnitude of human ingenuity became glaringly obvious. As the dust from the explosion cleared and the stunned silence of the room took hold, Korr found himself unable to look away from Dr. Jace Harrow, Elena Voss's brilliant attaché. Elena had disarmed the leader with her nerve strike, but it was Dr. Harrow's quick thinking that had turned the tide in the humans' favor. In the midst of all the confusion, as the remaining attackers scrambled to regroup, Harrow had not hesitated. Without a weapon, without a single resource beyond the shattered remains of the chamber's walls, he had acted. Korr watched as Harrow grabbed a jagged piece of debris, a mere fragment of the station's disintegrated doorframe. He hurled it across the room with such precision that it felt like the shard was moving in slow motion. A calculated missile heading directly for the core of one of the attackers' antimatter rifles. Korr's mind raced. The weapon was the size of a small boulder, and its destructive power was renowned across the galaxy. Yet here was a human, unarmed, under fire, with nothing but a piece of debris, and he was aiming for its weapon core. The shard struck with deadly accuracy, piercing the outer plating and triggering a violent detonation. A blinding flash erupted from the attacker's rifle, and in a heartbeat, the room was filled with the crackling sound of energy cascading into the air. The remaining assailants dropped to the ground, their weapons useless, their mission thwarted in an instant. Korr was still processing what he had just witnessed when Harrow turned, his face calm, almost detached. "It's about using what's around you," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "The world is full of tools. You just have to know how to use them." The simplicity of it hit Korr like a thunderclap. Harrow had not relied on advanced technology or sheer physical might. He had used the environment around him, manipulating the station's very structure to his advantage. In that moment, Korr realized that humanity's true strength was not in their technology. It was in their ability to adapt and use their surroundings, their quick thinking, and their profound understanding of the world around them. As the remaining attackers were subdued, Korr's mind raced. The humans had just proven, once again, that they didn't need weapons. They were the weapon. The aftermath of the attack left Nexus Prime in a delicate state of recovery. As the dust settled, Korr stood in a corner of the chamber, his thoughts racing. The humans had just done something no one in the galaxy could have predicted. They had neutralized the most dangerous faction to ever breach the Concordium's headquarters, and they had done it without firing a single shot. Korr couldn't shake the image of Dr. Jace Harrow's precision or Elena Voss's cool, calculated nerve strike. Their actions had been nothing like the usual show of power, yet they had been infinitely more effective. The Sons of Entropy, notorious for their antimatter rifles, devices that could obliterate entire ships in seconds, had been rendered utterly powerless by the ingenuity of two unarmed humans. Korr's mind turned to the stories he had heard in the past. The humans' fabled victory over a berserk Torgan warlord. How a single human had disarmed the towering beast, used its own fusion lance to take down a squad of enforcers, all in under a minute. The numbers were staggering. One human, alone, had stopped a warlord who had taken entire armies to subdue in previous battles. But it wasn't the numbers that intrigued Korr. It was the method. The humans didn't use brute force. They didn't rely on their weapons. They used their minds, their adaptability, their ingenuity. The realization hit him like a shockwave. The humans weren't exempt from carrying weapons because they were weak or naive. They were exempt because they didn't need weapons. Their true strength was their relentless adaptability and resourcefulness, traits that no weapon, no matter how powerful, could ever replicate. As Korr pondered the galaxy's balance of power, he could no longer ignore the undeniable truth. Humanity had mastered what the rest of the galaxy had failed to see. The true power lay not in the weapon, but in the mind behind it. 2 days had passed since the attack on Nexus Prime, and the atmosphere in the Terra embassy was far more relaxed. An atmosphere Korr was still not entirely accustomed to. A poker game, of all things, had been arranged to de-escalate tensions between species and encourage diplomacy. The stakes were high, not just the game itself, but the future of intergalactic relations. Korr found himself seated at the long, polished table, surrounded by diplomats and representatives from various species. The room was dimly lit, filled with a strange mix of formal austerity and informal camaraderie. The ambassadors were unarmed, save for the sharp wit and calculating minds they carried. Yet there was something uniquely unsettling about it. No weaponry, no force, just human ingenuity, yet again. At the head of the table sat Elena Voss, calmly shuffling the deck with one hand, her other resting casually on the table. Her movements were deliberate, measured, as if every flick of her wrist was part of a much larger strategy. Korr had been briefed on human strategies before, but there was something about watching her in action that was hypnotic. It was as if she saw the world through a different lens, every action, every word. Every card was part of a larger game, and it wasn't just about winning. It was about understanding and control. The game itself was a true display of human tactics. Elena's eyes scanned the room, reading the subtle shifts in body language, picking up on every tell the other ambassadors thought they were hiding. She smiled, placing a confident bet, but it wasn't the amount of the chips that was significant. It was the timing. In the galaxy of diplomats and military tacticians, Elena understood something others didn't: how to make others think they had control, while taking it away completely. "Is this your way of negotiating, Ambassador Voss?" Korr asked, his voice low. His eyes locked on the cards she was shuffling. Elena chuckled. "Negotiation doesn't always have to happen in a conference room, Korr. Sometimes you win by making others believe they're in charge." The game dragged on, but Korr was no longer concerned with the cards. His focus was on the dynamics at play. The way Elena effortlessly turned rivals into allies with nothing more than a well-timed joke, a clever play, or a misdirected glance. Her success rate at poker was nothing short of impressive. She had won 95 from some of the games she played in the past 2 years, not by chance, but by understanding human psychology, by understanding people. The final hand came, and the room fell silent. Elena raised the stakes again, a move that made the other ambassadors exchange nervous glances. Korr, still holding onto his cards, felt the pulse of the room shift. The real game wasn't about the money. It was about who could outwit the other. And in that moment, Korr saw it clearly. Elena wasn't just winning a poker game. She was winning the entire room, one hand at a time. As the final chips were pushed to the center, Elena placed her cards down with a slow, deliberate motion. "Full house," she said, her voice light. "I guess it's just a matter of knowing when to fold and when to push forward, don't you think?" Korr's heart raced, but not with the adrenaline of combat. It was the rush of realization. The humans weren't just good at fighting, they were masters at strategy, at seeing what others couldn't, at manipulating the rules of the game without ever once breaking them. In that moment, Korr knew humans didn't need weapons, because they had already mastered the greatest weapon of all, the mind. Korr's mind buzzed with new realizations. The poker game had been more than just an exercise in diplomacy. It had been a revelation. Elena Voss wasn't just a skilled negotiator. She was a master strategist. She didn't need brute force or a galaxy-ending weapon to command the room. She wielded something far more potent: the ability to manipulate perceptions, to turn every interaction into a calculated move. In the following days, Korr found himself watching the humans more closely. The truth was undeniable now. Humanity's power didn't lie in their advanced technology or weaponry. It was in their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to use any tool at their disposal, even if that tool wasn't a weapon. Their ingenuity was limitless. One of the most striking moments came when Elena and Dr. Harrow had once again diffused a volatile situation. This time, It wasn't a rogue faction or a physical threat. It was a trade negotiation with a species known for their aggressive tactics, the Vralth, a race with a long history of territorial disputes. Their demands were high, their patience low, and the threat of war was very real. But Elena didn't blink. She sat across the table from the Vralth delegation, her eyes unwavering, her expression calm. Dr. Harrow presented data with an ease that belied the gravity of the situation. An intricate analysis of the Vralth's own economic weaknesses, showing them how their aggressive stance would eventually collapse their entire trade system. The numbers didn't lie. Elena's calm logic, backed by precise human technology that could analyze complex data faster than any Vralth system, turned the tide. Within hours, the Vralth agreed to a deal that favored humanity's interests, averting what would have been a disastrous conflict. Korr watched it all unfold, his previous assumptions shattered. Humanity had weaponized their minds, and that made them infinitely more dangerous than any species armed with a plasma cannon or a fusion lance. The true power of the human race was their unrivaled adaptability, their unmatched strategic thinking, and their relentless drive to solve problems. They had mastered peace not by force, but by understanding the situation better than anyone else. Korr Valtrek stood at the center of the vast Concordium assembly chamber, the room eerily quiet as he prepared to present a proposal that could change the course of intergalactic diplomacy. His heart thudded in his chest, not from fear, but from a deep sense of responsibility. The humans had already proven their worth, and in ways that challenged the very foundation of the Concordium's long-standing traditions. Now, it was time for the galaxy to change its approach to power. The councils for 100 representatives filled the seats around him, their weaponry gleaming in the ambient light, each species fiercely protective of their place in the galaxy. Yet, as Korr looked across the assembly, he couldn't help but feel that the future of the galaxy lay not in force or weapons, but in something far more powerful: the ability to adapt, to think, and to solve problems. The humans had shown him that. Fellow delegates, Korr began, his voice steady but carrying the weight of the moment. We have seen today the greatest demonstration of power I have ever witnessed. It was not in the weapons we carry, nor the armor we wear. It was in the adaptability, the intelligence, the ingenuity of the humans. Their actions in our recent trials have proven that diplomacy, not through threats or force, but through intellect, can ensure peace. The room was silent as he continued, his words gaining strength. The humans stand as living proof that we don't need weapons to secure our place in this galaxy. They are, in fact, more powerful than any of us could have imagined. They have solved problems that others could not, using nothing but their minds and their creativity. As a result, the galaxy is safer, more unified, and less dependent on the fear of destruction. Korr turned to face the council's representatives. I propose, then, that we reevaluate the foundation of the Concordium's rules. The idea that strength is measured only by the weapons we wield is outdated. Humanity has shown us that the real measure of power lies not in force, but in the ability to adapt, to negotiate, to solve problems. The data was irrefutable. Since humanity's introduction to the Concordium, their involvement in over 300 diplomatic and military crises had resulted in a staggering 90% success rate, all achieved through creative solutions, not force. In the past year alone, the humans had negotiated peace between 5 warring species and diffused 3 potential military conflicts, none of which had required the use of any weaponry. Korr's voice grew resolute. I ask you to consider a future where the true strength of a species is measured by its ability to think, to adapt, and to create. The future of the galaxy depends on it. As Korr's words hung in the air, he could feel the shift. There was a stirring among the representatives. For the first time, they saw the potential of a galaxy where intellect and diplomacy, not firepower, ruled. And at that moment, Korr knew that the proposal he had just put forth could very well change the course of history. The council chamber was silent. save for the faint hum of Nexus Prime's advanced systems attempting to restore full functionality. After the attack, the last of the rogue attackers had been removed, and the threat to the station had passed. But Korr Valtrek stood frozen, his mind still processing the events of the past several days. The humans had changed everything he had ever believed about power. The proposal Korr had presented was gaining traction. There was no denying it now. Humanity had proven that their strength lay not in their weapons, but in their adaptability and ingenuity. As the debate continued, Korr found himself reflecting on the humans' journey, from their first moments in the Concordium to their brilliant defense of Nexus Prime. They had faced down the most dangerous of foes, not with firepower, but with quick thinking, sharp strategy, and a sheer refusal to back down. In the past year, humans had single-handedly brokered peace deals between 12 species, a number that outpaced even the most seasoned diplomats of the galaxy. Their record of averting conflicts without once firing a shot had become the gold standard for diplomacy. The numbers were staggering. Of the 50 major intergalactic crises in the last 5 years, humans had played a pivotal role in resolving 48, and they had done it all through intelligence, negotiation, and, most importantly, an unshakable belief in the power of cooperation. Korr had seen it firsthand. The Torgan warlord, the Sons of Entropy, the Vralf trade dispute. In each instance, the humans had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious, not through force, but through mind, spirit, and an unyielding will to find a peaceful solution. As the Council's delegates spoke, Korr realized that humanity's legacy was not just their accomplishments. It was the way they had fundamentally reshaped the galaxy's understanding of power. Their brilliance lay not in the weapons they carried, but in the weapons they didn't need: their minds, their hearts, and their capacity to unite the galaxy through the force of intellect. The future of the galaxy, Korr now knew, would be shaped by the example humanity had set, one where strength was not measured by the size of your weapon, but by the size of your ideas. And in that moment, Korr Valtrek made a promise to himself. He would carry this lesson forward for the rest of his days. The future belonged to those who thought, not those who fought.